Well, it's morning. I was about to say good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending today's session. It is 11 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn it over to our director, Ms. Anna Ehrman, so that we can go ahead and get started on the topic today. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Hey, Anna, if you're speaking, you might be muted.
Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. I was way down on my explanations and welcoming folks. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. Welcome everybody. I am very excited to have the first ever session of the Analyzing Federal Contract Spreadsheet class. The origin of this training is thank you for your questions and inquiries and recommendations that we add this part to the market research curriculum. So the goal today is to build on the lessons before of getting the federal spending data. And today we're going to talk about how to make it useful, how to create columns, visualize it, and really build some analysis and use it to make some determinations and judgments and help you in your market research and talking to customers and being successful in government contracts. So a little bit of housekeeping. We have Wendy Bray and Norman Seeley on the line. They will be answering questions in Q&A. So please put your questions in Q&A. There may also be a chat open that's a little bit more informal. So if you want to share some tips, if you want to chat with one another, please feel free. I am only operating with one screen today, so I will probably not be looking at chat or Q&A. So I'm asking Wendy and Norm, please stop me, interrupt me if there's something urgent that I'm not explaining. I want to make sure that I demystify this whole thing. This class is being recorded and you will receive a copy of the presentation as well. The class will also be posted on YouTube. So for all of your friends that missed this fascinating Friday webinar, you could give them in about 2 days, well, by Monday, they should have a link on YouTube that they could go and watch this at any time. So with that, let's get started. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you the steps. So I'll walk you through using the spreadsheet. Using the PowerPoint, and then we'll jump into a spreadsheet and we'll do it live, or I'll do it live, and you could either watch or follow me, or both. Right. So here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to talk about the data sources just for a second to kind of give you a baseline of where the information comes from. I will show you how I set up the spreadsheet that we're going to use today. Then we'll talk about the components. What are some of the key fields and columns that you should be looking at to do the analysis with? And then we'll talk about setting that up within your computer program in order to make the data work for you. The sources that we're using, the sources that we're commonly using for this kind of analysis come from free federal databases. We have trainings in this series on using STAM, using USA Spending, and using GSA eLibrary, and you could use it for all of those. Today we'll be using USA Spending document. I think somebody had a hand up. Do we want to do you want to ask your question?
They're muted. Do you want me to unmute them, Anna? Because there's
Sure,
two hands
yeah.
up. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to unmute you, Paul. And it may have been by mistake also if they were using the reaction.
Okay,
And then I
so
see Thomas has a hand up as well. So I'll unmute you as well, Thomas. And if not, in a few seconds, I'll go ahead and lower the hand. Okay.
all right.
I think it was by mistake.
All right. Yeah, if you have questions, put them in Q&A, and that way it'll flow smoother, because Wendy knows she could interrupt me anytime. All right. So here's what I did. I wanted to have a simple search so that everybody would understand what we're talking about. So I didn't put quantum computing or anything like that. I asked my 11-year-old daughter for a noun, and she said fish, so we're going with fish. So I will show you exactly what I did to create this spreadsheet, just to give you an idea of what happened. So keyword, we selected fish, fiscal year 2023. And because, as you could imagine, there are so many results with that, I did a little bit of cleaning up the data. So I narrowed down not just to fiscal year 2023, but also just to contract and indefinite delivery vehicles, which we'll talk about. And award amount, I did $10,000 or more. So I just did 10,000 and leave it to max. That excludes any kind of $0 modifications, really tiny purchases. It still gave us quite a number of results, but the data set is manageable enough so that I could demo it and show you what's going on. So we're looking at fish purchases in 2023, regardless of agency, that is contract. All right. Then I thought, well, when we look at just the columns, just at the data types that come up, what are the things, what are the words that are in that universe? The most common word is code. And we'll talk about what that means. But what you need to know for now is ignore anything that has code. It's an internal government code. Usually it's kind of like an internal acronym. Every column that has a code also has a column right next to it that is the description. So code shows up a lot. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about having to understand it, because there is an explanation right next to it. There are quite a number of things here. I wanted to ease your worries a little bit by acknowledging that there's a lot. We won't even talk about all of it. We certainly won't do analysis on all of it, but I will explain to you what are some of the most important columns, important data definitions that we will need to look at and that you will want to understand in your government contracting journey. So I cleaned it up a little bit. I took out the words that are scary and really don't mean much. And we'll see things like contracts, awards, businesses, government. So that's starting to make a little bit more sense. Here are the column names. I went through most of them. And what I did is I left the names, the column names as they are. And on the left, you'll see the contract IDs. The category will kind of lump them into what kind of information is found within these columns. And on the right is the meaning is, what do you expect? What can you expect when you look at this information? I'm going to pause here before defining all of them, just to see, to check if there are any questions that I should jump to right now.
Hi, Anna. Majority of the questions, I think it was just about two. One was asking about will we be demonstrating how to extract the data from sam.gov, but I'm going to provide them the information from our previous market research trainings.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So this spreadsheet was from USA Spending, but yeah, we've done trainings on USA Spending and on SAM data. So we'll see the column names, and I'm going to run through, there's 3 pages of this information of the types of data that you may want to look at when you are setting up your spreadsheets, when you're doing market research, when you're trying to figure out who is buying what I sell, who else are they buying it from, how much is government paying, what kind of contract they're using, where's the work done. So I'm not going to look at each specific line here, this is your reference guide. So when you pull the data, refer to this as kind of cross-reference what you need to find and when, right? So for example, if you want to know everything in a certain fiscal year, you'll be able to see, okay, I need to look for this column, the potential end date. The ones that I highlighted or in bold are the ones that I'm going to talk about in a little bit more detail, because those are Anna's favorites. So on the contract ID, those are, unless you're looking for something very, very specific, those are generally not that important, unless you're looking for specific contract and all the work for that contract. Under the funding, there are several columns that talk about the dollars. Federal action obligation is the value of this specific line item. Because if you remember from previous classes, when we're doing, when the government is doing data entry, when we're putting in contract records or CARs, we are defining the current line item, right? Regardless of the total value of the contract. Right now, I am obligating $20. Or right now, I am just changing the due date and there's $0. So the federal action obligation is what is happening right now. That, in my experience, has been the most accurate one. All the other ones are useful, but sometimes they're a little bit squidgy. But the federal action obligation is the most accurate, because that's what we're dealing with at the moment, and that's what the contracting officer is responsible for. On the dates, the interesting one to keep in mind is the period of performance potential end date. Sometimes they change the definitions. Sometimes it's called ultimate end date. What that means, that's the complete total final end of the contract when all the options are exercised. What that means to you is that is the date that the recompete contract needs to be awarded in order for that function to continue. So when you are doing market research, for example, and you're looking at the dates, you may want to position yourself to start marketing to that customer several months or maybe a year or maybe 18 months before that potential end date, because that's when government is doing market research, putting out sources sought, putting out solicitations, trying to figure out how to have that mission support continue after this end date hits. So that's the date in the future that you could step back in order to inform your decisions. Next, there are several columns dealing with agencies. And what you'll see is awarding agency name, awarding agency code, awarding sub-agency name, awarding sub-agency code. Just ignore the codes, because as I explained earlier, the actual names, the fully spelled out things, are right next to the codes. And that's in English, or relatively in English, and we'll be able to make use of it. If you see, there are two types of agency names. There's the awarding and the funding. Awarding is who does the contract paperwork. Funding is who has the money and is your end user customer. What I'm highlighting here is you'll want to know the department, which is the agency name, the sub-agency, which is the agency, and the office, that's the actual office. The most incremental one is the most useful one, because if I tell you that the Department of Veterans Affairs is buying replacement air filters, well, we have 1,500 buildings. Who is buying air filters? Go fish. If I'll tell you that the Veterans Health Administration is buying air filters, that's a little bit more helpful, but it's still every single hospital and clinic around the country. But if I tell you that the office buying air filters is the clinic in Loma Linda, California, then you know exactly where your customer is. So with respect to both awarding, like who's writing the contract, and the funding, who has the need and the money, you will specifically want to focus on the office name, because that is as incremental, as close to the requirement as possible. That's where your customer actually can be found. The next segment is the awardee information, and that's the vendor. There are a lot of columns dealing with the vendor. The recipient name is probably the one you'll want to know most. Maybe their parent name if they're a subsidiary, but that really varies. In some cases, you may want to know where they are located, and that information is available as well. The awardee information does not include their socioeconomic category. So I'm on slide 7. I saw somebody say that slides are not changing. Yeah, so that's where we are. Perfect. Thank you. This is the slow part. So we have to get through the definitions so that when I unleash you on the spreadsheet, you're comfortable and ready to rock and roll. All right. Will Reed has a question. Let's unmute him.
Hey, Will, a request was sent with your hand raised. It may have been by accident to Anna.
Okay. All right.
So if he doesn't unmute himself, we do have a question about the spreadsheet. One of the questions was, will the government please provide a spreadsheet which is already set up with the column names for use as a starting point for contractors?
So here's what I'll do. Because the actual spreadsheet demo is part of this class, I will save whatever we come up with, and we could share that with everybody. Before I promise that, Wendy, can we do that?
We can, but I do want to remind everyone that especially if you're using USA spending or any reports, these are active reports. So even if you were to use this as a starting point, and let's just say, for example, out from off the screen, it says agency awarding _ agency _ name. If we just change that to agency, you'll have to remember that when you go back, even though you're using this already, column built out spreadsheet, you'll have to go back and remember what the original column names were as you continue to download those reports and migrate that information from the original report to this report that you're requesting from us. So we can do that, use what we've already had, and we can send it out to you. But you got to remember what the name of the original names for those columns were and make sure that you're inputting that data into the correct places.
Thank you. That's a good point. So I did see a question pop up about using vehicles, and that's actually the next thing that I want to talk about. So the contract types is what kind of contract, and unless you know government contracting, this is a little bit intricate and dense, but let's discuss it. So sometimes contracts are definitive. That is, I want to replace one air filter in one building. I'm going to put out a contract for an air filter replacement. You come in, you fix it, you leave. Sometimes I may have a contract that's a vehicle, which is a silly term, but it makes sense if you give me a little bit of time to set this up. A vehicle is also known as an indefinite contract. Sometimes it's called an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract. So if you see indefinite delivery vehicle or indefinite delivery contract or IDV or IDC, as they are on page 7, that's what it means. Here's what the concept is of a vehicle or an IDC, IDV kind of contract. Let's say I know that I have 5 buildings and they all have air filters, and all those air filters will need to be replaced quarterly if you're timely. Hopefully we are. So I don't want to have a contract every time I need a new thing. I want to have a 5-year contract for 5 buildings where somebody will just come in, do what they need to do on a regular basis, and we don't have to remember every time, and they don't have to remember every time and ask for money. So that vehicle, that general instrument, allows the government to set up the parameters of the contract and then buy what we need as that need comes into place. So I will pay every quarter, but I don't have to execute a whole new contract and award and competition and market research every quarter, because that takes a lot of time and effort. So how do you know if a contract is a definitive one or not? Well, the award type columns will tell you exactly what those are. If it says IDC or IDV, that's indefinite vehicle. You will also see different types of vehicle. It'll say like FSS, Federal Supply Schedule, or it may say delivery order under those. You could also see what kind of pricing, contract pricing there is, if it's fixed or cost plus, for example, to help you determine what kind of financing and cost documents and proof you will need if you're bidding on that kind of work. Location, it doesn't matter unless it does. For example, in my previous role at the Department of State, the country of performance was very important because vastly different prices and work conditions. For VA, most of the work is in the US, most of the work is in continental US. So the location can vary depending on the work that you're doing. If you're doing construction and you need to be licensed, you'll want to make sure that you're following the states where you have a license. And then the transaction or within the scope, what is being done? There's three types of information. The transaction description, that is my favorite thing in the whole document. That is as much of a narrative, as much of a description in English as you're going to get. Sometimes I have to warn you, they're very disappointing. It'll say something like extension or funding or continued services or professional services. But sometimes it'll tell you delivery of 15 pounds of tuna. We're talking about the fish spreadsheet, so I'm referencing that. You'll also see the PSC codes and the NAICS codes, which if you are registered in SAM, if you've set up your company, you should know what those are. This information, when you pull it for your customer, can be illuminating because you may see some NAICS codes or PSC codes that are surprising. Not everything is codified the way that makes sense to you for a whole number of reasons that are beyond the scope of this presentation. I actually have a whole article on LinkedIn about NAICS codes that if you want to go down that rabbit hole, I recommend. And if we have time, we can talk about it. So I'm going to take a breath. Any questions about the data that's on this page or before?
There is a question that said, if I want to search for standalone type of contracts, which are not under a vehicle, what is the most appropriate contract type?
So it would be a definitive contract, or under IDV, it'll say none, or it'll be blank. So it will pretty much exclude any kind of IDV type. It'll be a 0 IDV type. So far, all the raised hands have been incorrect. So if you have a question, or if you want to put a question, put in Q&A, and if you want to speak to it, just indicate that, and Wendy will work with you, and you could raise your hand. All right, almost at the end of the definitions. I am purposefully spending a lot of time here because I want you to come to this understanding what you can get and how you can use it. So competition, this is where all the small businesses get excited. You'll see extent competed and type of set aside. Extent competed is the type of competition. For example, was it a set aside? Was it full and open? Was it competed under SAP, or was it not competed? And then the type of set aside is, if it was set aside, is it service disabled veteran owned? Is it hub zone? Is it 8A, etc.? There's cost and pricing information that includes the use of a P card. If that's interesting to you, P card is the government purchase card. That's the purchase card as payment method. That'll be a yes or no, or true or false. And there are a whole number of columns, which we won't spend too much time on, that talk about the vendor's socioeconomic category or categories. That's not the same as the type of competition, because a vendor could have won a full and open competition while being small, women-owned, hub zone SDV OSB company. So if you want to know what kind of socioeconomic categories apply to the vendor, you could get that information. And you'll see all of those columns for each socioeconomic category, and it'll say either T or F. depending on what makes sense. So those are the data definitions that we'll be using. There are, believe it or not, there are a lot more in the spreadsheet, but at this early stage, as you're trying to get your mind around how to get and manipulate the data, those are too far in the weeds. So we'll save those for advanced discussions. So I'm gonna move on just a little bit to kind of walk you through the spreadsheet points, but I'm gonna pause for a second to check if there are questions as we proceed. Okay, seeing none. All right, I will preview this because you will have the spreadsheet. We will work on the spreadsheet, but I wanna make sure that you are not scared by any point of what you'll see. So here's what we're gonna do. We're going to format this data set as a table, which is a super simple function. I'm using Excel. So if you see any keyboard shortcuts, they work in Excel. If you have Google Sheets or anything else, I can't vouch for the keyboard shortcuts. But the functions are very similar across software platforms. So first we format it as a table, which will make it a lot prettier, and you will feel accomplished just by that, I promise you. The simplest thing you can do makes a world of difference. Then I'll show you how to sort and filter within columns to find some useful information. Yes, you could see incumbent spends, absolutely. We'll remove the duplicates, clean up the data, and then we'll do some formatting. And then we will do some advanced functions like pivot tables. And I'm not going to run through this here, but just know that you have it, right? I will show you how to do, right? You select the corner, you insert the pivot table, you add the pivot table, and then you hit OK. So we'll walk through that, but just know that when you see this PowerPoint, the instructions are right here. And then we'll set up the fields. I'll show you what the fields are, and we'll reference back to this, how to set up the different pivot table fields and what to put in them. And then if we have time, we'll talk about some simple but fancy looking advanced analytics tools that you could quickly add to your spreadsheets. So I'm going to leave this here and we'll refer to the table as needed, to the PowerPoint as needed. So I'm going to switch to showing my spreadsheet here. I'm going to share. And this spreadsheet has not been formatted at all. So what I did is, like I showed earlier, I pulled a spreadsheet that said fish 2023, and I made it more than $10,000. So this is what it looks like. We've got columns A through K, which is a lot. And you'll see this information, the definitions that we've discussed. So I'm going to walk through setting this up as if I were doing market research for myself. If I were selling fish, here's what I want to know, and here's how I'm going to look at the data. So first, Control T. It says create table. Where is the data for your table? It automatically selects everything. As long as your mouse is in any field with data in it, so anywhere, I click on this one, that one, doesn't matter. As long as it's not blank field, Control T, and then just hit OK, and it makes it pretty. That allows us to do some simple functions. So we're going to do some filtering and some sorting. So let's say we want to, and when Wendy was saying that columns could be renamed, you could rename any of these columns. So instead of saying action obligation, you could say current value. In fact, you could take the dollar column and go here, home, and hit the, sorry, this dollar thing. Nope, format as, there we go. Format as dollar function. And then I could do remove all the decimals, and I will see these as dollars. But let me show you how we do some sorting, and it's taken a little bit of time, maybe because there's a lot of information. So if I want to know what is the farthest out, right? What are some contracts that are expiring farthest into the future? So remember, the potential end date is the ultimate completion date. I could sort from oldest to newest, or I'm going to do from newest to oldest. Newest means date most far in the future. And there are some contracts that are expiring in May of 2034. That's 10 years from now. That's a lot of runway for me to do my market research. I may not want to go that far in the future. I may want to look at some things that are expiring, next 2 years, but that's a demonstration of the sorting function. Let's say also I only want to look for things that are at the Department of Labor. So I'm going to look for, I could sort by agency, or I could do a filter. I could, for example, do text filters, and instead of selecting all, I'm going to, you know what, I'm really curious what kind of fish the Justice Department buys. So I'm going to filter it just by Department of Justice. And you know what? Because I'm really curious, I'm going to go to Anna's favorite column of the description, and it's farther out. It is past the vendor information. So for the question about spend by vendor, you saw the obligation amount, and now you have the vendor information. So that's one way to tell. So I'm going to skip past the vendor information. I'm going to go to, here we go, transaction description. So let's say I want to figure out what are we doing with fish? I could do sort, so that'll give me alphabetical by the first letter of whatever's in that field. I could also do filter by certain information by the line items in here. Or maybe I want to find, okay, everything that says frozen, tater tots. Okay, maybe I want to do everything that has frozen, because I saw a bunch of it. So I could do text filter that contains, and I could say that contains frozen or contains fresh. And that filter allows me to say that everything that is fresh or frozen, it'll be included in here. So we have filtered it by the Department of Justice, and now we're filtering it by fresh or frozen. And what I could tell you, based on not even looking at the funding office, but having done this for the last 20 years, these are the Bureau of Prison food for all the prisons that are ordering frozen food. For other industries, just to give you an idea, for example, if you search for information technology, or which is really broad, if you search for, let's say, cybersecurity as your general search term, you could filter these by keywords such as penetration testing, or by VMware, or Okta, or something very specific like that. I have no idea what centrifuge has to do with fish. I'm not sure I want to know. But that's the simple function of sorting and filtering. Okay, if we're good with that, I'm going to jump to some of the complicated things which I love teaching people about, and my favorite. I have a lot of favorites with spreadsheets, but pivot tables I absolutely adore. So Wendy, unless there's anything else on this sheet that we should explain, I'm going to move on to pivot tables. What say you?
We do have a few questions. One of them, and I was getting ready to type it, but it may be better to verbally communicate it. Their question was, as an SDVOSB, can we as a company apply for a P card so we can be a company more appealing to government contract holders buying our products? So I think that it's two things. One of them is as far as having their own purchase card that can help with credit, but also I kind of wanted to communicate to them about what you mentioned about the purchase card, and that's that their business is able to accept payment on a purchase card as opposed to them applying for a purchase card for their business. I just want to make sure that there wasn't any confusion in that.
Yes, thank you for that. So a purchase card is the government's credit card, and it's usually Visa or MasterCard that the General Services Administration manages, and it is between you and your bank to set up the merchant service account that is compliant with government security in order to be able to accept government purchase cards. And it's pretty common. It's usually not anything more onerous than a commercial merchant account setup. You will have to notify, or you will have to add that to your SAM account as well. I think there's a checkbox there that says accepts P cards or accepts purchase cards.
Thank you, Anna. The other
Yes.
question was, assuming these POP dates are inclusive of the option period.
Yes. Yes, that's why there's the current performance period and then the ultimate completion date, and those will vary. So the ultimate completion date does include the options, yes.
And then the last question, can we also pull the subcontractors data?
Not through this report. USA Spending, when you do a search, it has a subcontracting report that's separate that you could download. It functions virtually the same. It has slightly different columns, and obviously because you'll download it to a spreadsheet, you could do the same operations with it. Subcontracting data is not available on SAM, only on USA Spending.
And there was another question about NAICS, how to find which ones apply to my products, which have been used to buy my products. And I'm actually going to provide the link again, Charles, in the chat. We addressed that in one of our previous trainings. This is actually the 6th training of our market research series. So I'll be placing for everyone in the chat a link to our YouTube channel so you can go back and review some of the trainings we've already conducted concerning some of those topics you have questions about.
Yeah.
Turn it back over to you, Anna.
Thank you. So just one thing about NAICS codes here, since we are on here. If you sell fish and you are listed as poultry, but you haven't thought about adding food manufacturing or maybe not court reporting, that seems a little weird. But I don't know, grocery merchant wholesalers, which government agencies are not supposed to use wholesalers. But if your customer is wrongfully putting an NAICS code on, it doesn't hurt to add it. So that's one way to find kind of red flags, but also some interesting things that you hadn't considered. Or if you sell all your fish as, you know, prepared food manufacturing and they're buying fish as poultry, you won't want to miss that, even though you don't sell chickens. All right. So moving on to a spreadsheet. So here's to the pivot table. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to click the top left triangle box here, very corner, and it selects everything. I'm going to go to Insert, Pivot Table. You could also do recommended pivot table if you want to play with it, but in the interest of time and setting it up the way I want to show you, we're just going to do a pivot table, so it starts us from blank. And this gives us a couple of options. By default, it starts it in a new worksheet, which is just fine. You could embed a pivot table in the same worksheet, but that gets complicated and you lose your fields, and it's just not worth the effort. So new worksheet. Okay, it's going to open a new worksheet right there, and it'll say, I'm just moving something. Okay, and it'll have a blank kind of pivot table list and the fields on the right. And we're going to populate the fields. So let me go back to the presentation for just a second, and just as a refresher on the fields. So I'm going to share the presentation. So we're past this. And we're going to get to that, but I'm going to leave this kind of as a cheat sheet here. So just to show you what I'm going to set it up. So filters are just like the filters I showed on the spreadsheet itself. It allows you to only show specific data sets. So for example, if you only want to see things that are SDBU OSB set-asides or only within the Department of Veterans Affairs, you filter it, and then the data that comes below will only include what is included in your filter. the columns is how you could segment your information. Think of it as a visual flow. So you could do it by fiscal year, or you could do it by a set aside. And this one is hard to visualize until you see it. The years is the easiest because it's a progression. Sometimes if you select the wrong thing, you could have 15 columns, and then that functionally doesn't really work because you're not visualizing what you wanted to see. The rows is where it's the line item information. It's your funding offices, it's the vendors, it's the NAICS codes, things like that. And the values, this is the numbers. So anything that has a numeric value, like dollars, like numbers. There are other ways to use the values column, and I'll show you, but think of it as a count of something or an addition of something. Okay. So this is the cheat sheet you have in your PowerPoint that you'll be able to refer to refresh your memory. And also, I have agreed to, once we set it up, that this will be provided to you guys. So you will have this spreadsheet, whatever we come up with here. So let's start setting it up. So these are all the columns that were in the original data set. So let's say I want to filter by a certain department. I could scroll down and find the funding agency name, and I click on it and I drag it to my filter. And now see, I have something that says filter. I'm not going to play with it right now. We'll figure it out later, but you'll see that the filter is already set up. Now, I want to know all of the vendors at that department. So I'm going to, now I could keep scrolling down, but I also want to show you the other ways to get the information. So now I don't remember, does it say contractor name or vendor name or company name? So let's see, say vendor? Nope, it doesn't say vendor. Does it say company? No. You know what? It definitely had the word name in it. So if I type name, that filters it down a little bit, right? So it's fewer columns for me to sort through. Recipient name, that's what we're going. So we're going to take the recipient, we're going to drag that into the rows. So now we haven't filtered anything, but we see all the potential vendors that are here. And some of them are almost identical. And that is a flaw of these government systems. It's if I key in something and I put in LLC and I don't put a period at the end, and then Wendy goes in and adds another report for the same vendor and she does put a period in, it'll show up as two separate companies. For your own market research, it may not matter. You could just do the math. If you really want to fix this information, you could go back to this source data and you could fix it, and then it'll change it here. And I'll show you how to do that for one of them. All right, so now let's do the columns, and we'll do fiscal year. Fiscal action date, fiscal year. So when is this action that we're recording happening? We're going to drop it in here. Nope, that's only 1 year. That's not good. So that's not helpful. Let's do ultimate potential end date. And we saw those end dates. Oh, that was bad. So this is an example of what not to do. Because actually, Excel saved me from my own mistake because it gave me years, and there's a lot of years. But really, date is every single date. So if there's a contract award in every single date of that year, see how it could expand? And that's a lot of information that is really too silly to include. So I'm going to leave it here for now for demonstration purposes. Now let's talk about values. We want to talk about how much are we talking about, how much is being obligated in the current report, in the current line item. So we want the federal action obligation. We're going to drop it in the value. And
Hey,
it
Anna,
has, yeah.
we had a question about how you got to this report. They said to get to this report, you searched by keyword, fiscal years, and the contract/IDVs, and then export it to a spreadsheet or CSV.
So to get to this report, okay, let me stop. I'm going to go share my that, my PowerPoint. So, all right. So I went to USA spending. I searched by keyword fish, fiscal year 23, contracts, IDVs, and everything over $10,000. And then there's a download button. So I downloaded it to that zip file and extracted the Prime Awards data set. That is explained in detail in the USA spending class. So that's how I got that data set. And what you see in the spreadsheet is the raw data that I did not manipulate at all until the start of this training.
Thank you, Anna.
So here we are with the years. I'm actually going to take out the column if I think of something better. And now see column, it added quarters and years and dates, and it thought it was being really helpful, but really that was not helpful. So maybe, you know what, let's do type of set aside. Type of set aside. Let's do it that way. Yeah, okay. All right, so the only thing we didn't actually put in place is the filter. So we have the filter function and it says all, and we could do select multiple items. So let's say we only want to look at the Bureau of Land Management and Department of Veterans Affairs. Hit OK. And now we only see Bureau of Land Management and Department of Veterans Affairs. And we see the vendors, the obligations to those vendors by set asides, right? So, and including the total. If we take out the set asides, we'll see obligations for those two agencies to all these vendors by dollars. Now, the dollars look kind of unorganized. So a cool thing to do here is click on any of the dollars, go to the data tab, you do sort. The cheat sheet here is do Z to A, goes from the bottom to the top, and it goes from the highest value to the lowest value. And just like in the previous worksheet, because these are numbers, you could highlight this column, go to home, dollar, take out the decimals, and now you'll see that Fisher Scientific, even though it wasn't fish, it had the word Fisher in it. So that is a fault of my request, right? It has weird data because I asked for weird things. So now it says that Fisher Scientific is the highest obligated for anything that had the word fish in it, which Fisher does. So now if I wanted to clean up the data, I could say, you know what, I did make a mistake. I didn't want anything that had to do with sciencey stuff. So I could take out everything Fisher Scientific. So let's say I go back into my spreadsheet, into my data sheet, and I'm going to, by the way, I'm going to name this. So if you right click in the little tab and you say data, it'll say data. I right click here and I say pivot table, pivot awardees, it'll know what kind of data is in here so that I have a visual. Could even right click and tap color, and I could make it orange if I wanted to. Let's say I wanted to remove everything that said Fisher Scientific. That was column name, or the row name, right? The category name was recipient name. So I'm going back here. I'm going to recipient name. Because I don't have the patience to scroll, I did a Control F, which does a find and replace. And I'm going to search this top row for everything that says recipient. Here's my recipient UEI. Nope, I don't want that. Recipient DUNS number. Nope. Recipient name. Here we go. And I'm going to close that. So with the recipient name, I'm going to filter everything that says Fisher. Fisher core report. You know what? I'm going to delete these two. I'm going to highlight all of these. So I filtered. Now the only data I have is lines that include Fisher Scientific and Fisher Court reporting, which are clearly not fish. So I'm going to highlight all these rows. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to delete these rows. And then I'm going to clear my filter so that my data doesn't look empty. Now I'm going to go back here. It still says Fisher because I need to refresh my filter. So I'm going to right click anywhere that has that pivot table, and I'm going to hit refresh and watch line 4. I feel like I need a drum roll here.
Hey, Anna, while we're waiting for that to refresh, someone did add in the comments, with making the search for the word fish with a space, eliminate things like Fisher?
Space is weird. I don't think it would. You could, for some reason it still showed. All right, let's take out everything that says Fisher on it. You could even, if I were, why didn't it remove it? This is so strange. Refresh. Come on. Why is my data not behaving? Fisher Scientific Company. Okay. Recipient name. Clear. That is odd. Scientific. Okay, this is supposed to work. I don't know what is happening here. Why it's not acting. Okay, this is how this is supposed to, I don't know. Now it's blanked. I don't know. Recipient name. I don't know why it's not refreshing. All right, you know what? Let's try another one. Grapevine Laundry. Oh, I know why. Okay, so this is a data management. This is know what you're doing. So remember how I filtered by something else here? So I'm only deleting stuff from a filtered data set. So everything else is untouched. Okay, here's how I do it. If I forgot, and this happens to me, so you see something live that may happen to you too. There may be some other filters. So you do filters. Okay, so filters. And you see where it says clear? I'm going to clear filters. That clears all of them. Now I'm going to back to recipient name. And I'm going to, recipient name. And I'm going to search for Fisher. And I'm going to, I don't want to touch all of them. I'm just going to find Fisher Scientific. I'm going to delete that because now I'm really intent on it. All right. Yes. Okay. So now, and if you do Control Shift and down, it'll select everything. So I'm going to delete all these rows. So it's usually a user error if that happens. So trace back your steps and clear your filters. And because there are a lot of rows, it may take a second. Thank you. And while that's going, if there's any other questions, please, Wendy, speak up. All right, so now we're going to refresh and watch row 4, and hopefully this will work because I am not messing up my own data. Here we go. Now they're gone. So you do the data set and set it up and clean it up, your functions will work. All right. So obviously you could switch this out. So instead of recipient name, you could add anything else. You could also stack them. So I'm going to delete this. Let's say I want to do NAICS code. I could pull it down and drop it under the recipient name. So now you see what NAICS codes were the awards for these vendors. So it's vendor and their NAICS code. Some of them may have more than one. You could do it. You could even reorder them. So you could do NAICS code, drag it up a little bit higher, and you could see in each NAICS code who were the awardees. So that's a construction NAICS code. So if I'm looking for fish, I could dismiss everything that's in the construction NAICS code. I could go back, filter by that NAICS code and delete it as well. So you could manipulate this data as makes sense. Another, we have just a few minutes left, so I want to show you some really quick advanced analytics that you could add with pivot tables or with your data sets. So you could, for example, create a chart. So you could do a recommended chart. It tells me to do this. So you could very quickly create charts or set up your own. I'm going to delete this one. And you could delete and manipulate these charts a little bit. You could also, you go insert, you could add, this is a cool one, you could add a slicer. A slicer is, does this look familiar? These are all of our columns, right? So the slicer is a ready-made filter. Let's say I only want, let me find the NAICS codes here. Or you know what, let's do type of IDC. I'm gonna add a slicer that's type of IDC. Blank. All right, that doesn't help. I'm gonna delete that. And let's add, insert a slicer. To do awarding agency, where is it? Awarding agency name. Okay. What did I click on? Oh, it was a code, darn it. All right. So, slicer. Let's try again. You know what? Let's do one that is by geography. I like that. So place of performance. I don't want to waste too much time. Place of performance, where is that? You know what? We'll do NAICS code because it's easier. So this shows all the NAICS codes. What you can do is you could, for example, click on one and it'll just show that one NAICS code. And then you clear it and it'll show everything. If you want to look for every NAICS code that is starts with a 5.4, you could say 5.4 that. You could do multiple select that way. So these are all the 5.4 NAICS codes selected. So that's the spreadsheet, pivot table, and the slicer. There are a couple of other advanced functions that we didn't have time for right now, but I do have a couple of minutes for questions. Wendy, if there, Wendy or Norman, if there are any other questions here that that we could address.
There is a question, the last question in the Q&A I see. They said, wouldn't it be more beneficial to sort by contract end date so that we can start doing a targeted list of agencies to market to?
Yeah. So the purpose of this is to show you the functionality. This isn't to tell you how to do the searches. But yeah, I would focus on the end dates. I would look at your vendors and the agencies and the set aside codes in any order, really. In fact, what you could easily do is if you have this pivot table set up and you like it, you do right click, you do move or copy, you create a copy. And so see, it says pivot awardees too. So I could do now right click anywhere in here and we do show the field list. The field list will bring us those columns again. I'm going to delete the slicer because it's bothering me. And then I could say agency, funding agency name, and drop it in here and we'll get rid of the NAICS code. So to get rid of stuff, you just take it and drag it back up here. So remember, we had a filter, right? So if I don't want to filter it, I drag it up here. So now we have by agency and the dollars, and maybe I want to filter it by set aside, type of set aside. and only, let's say, women-owned small business. Okay. So now I could see everything with fish. Here are the departments that buy fish within these within this type of set aside. And I'm going to create a 3D chart. And that'll give me a super quick idea that Department of Commerce buys more fish than all the others combined. Okay. Other questions?
That was all the questions.
All right. So I'm going to save this spreadsheet just the way you see now so that you could refer to it. You could listen back to the presentation when it's uploaded to YouTube, and you'll have this frame. I will take out all the filters here so that we don't confuse myself. And that is all I got. So I'm going to stop sharing. And thanks everybody for attending and participating. Hopefully you learned and are now less scared of spreadsheets. And I encourage you to try for yourself. All right.